Thank you so much, Anne. I think you've already covered my first 3 slides. So, I'm just kidding. So, the first one, the down one. Okay, great. Hi everyone, my name is Jesmin. I'm from RecomN. There's the N there, although most people don't really see it. So, it's RecomN.com. Yeah, so I'm one of the co-founders, and I've got one of my colleagues here as well. This is Jessica, in green. Give away. So what I'll do is I'll briefly introduce myself, and then I'll just like to do a quick poll of who is in the room, so at least I know to tailor the session to what you guys are probably interested in. Okay, so just a quick introduction. I'm Jesmin. Before starting RecomN, my previous life, I was actually a strategy and technology consultant. First with Accenture, and then with Bain & Company. And during that time, I worked in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, Hong Kong, East Africa, and covered a lot of quite large-scale projects in plantation, chickens. I worked with EPF. I've done banks, insurance, coffee, anything that you've probably come across with. I'll probably touch it at some point as well. And mostly helping multinational companies grow across Southeast Asia. So that's actually my background. And how actually me and a bunch of co-founders, how we actually started RecomN was because, when I was getting married and also renovating my house a few years ago, I realized that it was very, very difficult to get service professionals. It is very easy to get options. You can walk out and then you see the tree there, along with plumber, electrician, what the lucky, delivery man. You get a lot of options, but you don't know who is actually good and reliable. So the idea was to be able to create a platform so people are able to feedback and know who are the good service professionals in those areas. So essentially, that's what RecomN.com is. It connects customers to service professionals that are trusted and recommended by the community. Right? The problem we hope to solve is not give you a lot of options because there are a lot of trees in Malaysia. You can find a lot of these things. But what we find is that people like to ask for recommendations when they look at something. If you go to Facebook, right, people are always asking, hey, do you have a good plumber? Do you have a good electrician? Do you have a good solar or whatever? And they always want recommendations because recommendations from people like them tend to suit their requirements, right? And when we talk to service professionals, it's the same as well. They actually don't like to go to trade fairs so much or go and market to every single person. The best way to go is always through recommendations. Why? Because the conversion rates are so much higher. So actually, before I continue, I actually forgot to do something that I promised to do. How many of you here are running your own businesses? Already running your own businesses? Okay, and how many of you are interested in running your own business? Okay, and how many of you thought that there would be free food? That's why you're here. Okay, great. So everybody in one way or other is actually involved in a small business or at least interested to start off one, right? So what we found was that for service professionals, when it's actually recommended by a friend of a customer, their conversion rate is up to 80%. But if they actually, do cold calling and things like that, it's only 20 to 30%. So they actually waste a lot of time meeting people who are not suitable, right? So everybody wants to grow through recommendations. So after changing our business model quite a few times, we started off with something like Yelp. Has anybody heard of Yelp? It's basically a platform for you to go and look for, you can do anything there, food, plumber, dentist, all sorts of things. So when we started off with something like that, but then we then realized that we have a lot of digital directories in Malaysia, tons and tons. Everybody thinks they can start up a digital directory. So then we moved towards a model that is very similar to Thumbtack in the US. So Thumbtack is actually quite similar to this, and last year they actually raised 100 million from Google Capital. This year they raised another $120 million. And they are now valued at, if I'm not wrong, $1.3 billion. So it's actually a huge, we are actually following the steps of a very large company, and this is how it works, right? As a customer, what you do is, instead of going to Google and searching plumber in KL and then start to research each one of them and hope that they are not going to rob you when they come to your house, what you do is you actually fill in a very short form with your requirements. So you say, okay, say I'm looking for an interior designer. I want a modern industrial look. I want hanging lights, exposed pipes. And I want to do everything within, I don't know, 40,000 ringgit. And I want you to start in September this year. So then what happens is that within a few hours, you will get responses from up to 4 service professionals. Each of them are interior designers. You'll know what their ratings are, what kind of work they've done before, and you know what price they think that they can do it for you, and then you can see all the customer reviews and things like that, right? And this is really good because you can do it in very, very short time. And when someone like, say, let me give you an example. Henry Golding, for example, he's actually a BBC Travel. Who watches BBC Travel? Well, you seem to know a lot of stuff. So when he was looking for someone, I think he was looking for someone who can do, you know, those modern industrial look where there's no like ceiling one, and then everything is showing, and then the lights, you know, can see all the pipes and everything. He got a response within 1 hour time. He set an appointment within a few hours time, and in 2 days he already closed the job. And he wasn't even in KL at the time. He flew into KL just to do it, and then he flew out again. So it was very, very convenient for him. Why did the service professional like it? Because every day, through her email and through her dashboard, she gets a sense of what the customers are looking for. So she looked through all these customer requests and say, okay, this one I can do, or this one's a bit too small. I'm not interested to do, or this one's a bit too big. So instead of hunting all over town, she already knows what kind of customers she can, or you know, she can already introduce herself to. Then if she finds one that she's interested in, all she needs to do is submit a quotation, and then she'll get a way to connect with the customer. So in essence, we're trying to solve the information asymmetry between the customer and the service professional, and very quickly give the customer a sense of which service professional is right for them. Right? So yeah, this is essentially how our system works. Are there any questions at this point on how it works, how we make money, how you make money? I'm still trying to figure that out. Our idea of making money is this. For every customer request, we will send it to a certain set of service professionals who match them. So we have got some logic behind that. And then we allow 4 service professionals to quote to this customer, and we charge them a credit. So it's like, you know, those days where we stand at the phone and then we buy credit, and then you know, the money keep dropping on. So they essentially buy a package of credits, and then they start quoting, and how much they pay for each job depends on how big the customer budget is. So if the customer is only looking for someone for a 2,000 job, the price is very different from if it's a 200,000 ringgit jobs. And we tend to do, if you look at us and you look at our competitors out there, we tend to do the bigger ones. Because that is where recommendation and trust is very important. If you need somebody to just repair your toilet bowl, for example, you don't need a high value of trust, right? Because if he comes for 1.5 hours, you are probably there. After you go already, if it leaks, then okay, you just get some leak. But if you need like 100 ringgit, 200 ringgit, it's not a big thing. But if you hire the wrong guy to renovate your house, who has tried renovating your house? Is it like one of the most stressful things you've ever done in life? And after that, you want to kill someone? Either yourself or the renovation contractor, right? And every day you're looking at him and screaming at him and screaming at you, and it's terrible, right? Bad experience, right? Yeah. So if you get a bad renovation contractor, or if you get a bad wedding planner, yeah, you know, they can do some real damage to your relationship in your life. So that's where we, you know, focus the bulk of our time. Okay, so this is roughly our business model. I was asked to speak about financial management. Is that still true, or is it our startup journey? Both. Yeah. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about financial management, and essentially, when it comes to financial management, there's only 3 things really you have to talk about, right? Earning, that's for us what the service professionals pay us. So the customers don't actually pay anything to us, but the service professional pay us to be able to quote to the customers. Spending, essentially what the cost that we need to incur to get people to come and use us. And you think that, you know, if there's a great service, everybody will hear about it, it's just going to be like Facebook, it's just going to grow and I'm never going to need to spend a single cent in marketing. That is a lie. Why you also agree, right? If you have a great product, you think, wow, everybody should use this, I don't understand why they're not using it. But you still need to spend money in order to reach out to them, in order to convince them, Then you need salespeople to sit next to them and things like that. The more immature a market is, when I say immature, it means that people are still quite, not so, what's the word? Not so sophisticated in a sense. You still need to tell them about it. Then your level of spending goes up. Okay? So that's spending in order to get the customer for us. And then there's funding. And funding, why I put 2 arrows there is because they give you a little bit of money, but you have to give them a lot of money in the end. So funding is never it's not a straightforward thing, it's a very complicated thing. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as well. But essentially, this is the equation. You need more funding when your spending is way more than your earning. If your earning is more than your spending, you can also get funding, obviously, in order to grow, but you don't need to give up so much and you don't need so much money because the cash flow from your earnings are actually funding your business. If it's the other way around, and that is true for a lot of businesses, including Uber, those unicorns like MyTaxi, and a lot of these like Groupon, all those funky businesses that you always hear about. The reason that they need to announce funding round after round is not because funding is a fun thing, but because their level of spending is way more than their level of money right now. So they need money to grow. So the difference between a startup and a typical, okay, maybe I can ask you guys, what's the difference between a technology startup like us and a typical, grocery shop or a typical other small medium enterprise? Why is it that startups like us need to keep funding, getting more and more funding and around Series A, Series B, Series C, D, E, F? Why is that? Spend a lot in R&D, that's probably true. You spend a lot in R&D? Okay, what's the other reason why this thing is so lopsided? In our olden days, right, when I talk to my dad and talk to my granddad, right, it's actually not a very good thing getting funding. Why? You're borrowing money. Once you borrow money, then somebody else becomes your boss, right? So during those days, you need to borrow money a little bit shy when borrow from bank or borrow from your uncle or relatives or whatever. But now it seems to be different already. It seems like, wow, startup, right? You're not a real company until you borrow money from someone. And funding is borrowing money. So why is it important? And why is it so cool for us to borrow money? Anybody wants to hazard a guess?
Sell back the business later.
Then we can sell back the business. But it's always better to not borrow. Because if you don't borrow, then you don't need to return so much to people when you sell. Why is it necessary for us to
just try to bring the future to them?
Yeah. So essentially what I'm saying is that we are trying to borrow the technology of the future and we're trying to do it now. So in a sense that, firstly, we are trying to grow much faster than we are supposed to with our own resources. Because I think the bulk of us, we can keep growing slowly and growing slowly and growing slowly. But what will happen is that that guy will say, hey, I also can do. Then they will come in and then they will compete against you. So we have to grow very, very, very fast. So we are in fact growing a lot faster than we are supposed to in a sense, which is why we needed funding in order to grow faster than the market. That's the first reason. The second reason is in a lot of markets, like in Southeast Asia, the market is not very developed. So we have to spend ahead of time to educate the market that, hey, there is a better way to do things. This is better, but because you're not ready yet, so I need to invest in people, I need to invest in technology in order to educate you. That's why we are spending so much in a sense. The third thing is because a lot of these technology startups are in the technology area, which has network effects, which means that it gets better and better the more people out there are on it. So for example, there's MyTaxi, there's Easy Taxi. Who has used Easy Taxi? Who has used Taxi Monger? Who has used Cab to KLIA? MyTaxi, right? And a lot of times you use MyTaxi or Uber for some posh people like Wai Hong. The reason that you use these guys are because every time you call a taxi, the taxi comes fast, right now. They don't come within like 45 minutes, they come within sometimes 3 minutes and 5 minutes. So the reason that they can do it fast is because there's a lot of taxis within that area. And if they didn't have so many taxis within the area, then they wouldn't be so attractive anymore. So the more taxis there are, the better it is for you. The more customers there are, the better for the taxi drivers, because you become closer and closer and closer to them, right? Every time they look at the job. So this is called network effects. It gets better and better the more and more people on it. So the winner in the market is often the person that gets more people on it fast. Good or not, something else, never mind. But we must get all these people on it first, and then we figure out how to make money in the end. So that's why, again, he's borrowing from the future in the sense that a business model full of holes on actually, but I need people to use it first, because if I don't do it, then somebody else will do it, and then I'm screwed and dead. Right, in that sense. And then I had a fourth reason. Yes, my fourth reason is that a lot of the technology companies you see nowadays are often new ideas that are not quite validated. So when somebody invests in you, it means somebody with at least half a brain is able to understand your business model, and somebody can see the future in this model. So it just acts as a form of validation as well, right, for your business model. So those are probably the 4 reasons. Anybody remembers the 4 reasons anymore? I still don't remember it. So those are the 4 reasons why we often raise money, and we have to raise money more than the typical grocery store or coffee shop or things like that. Yeah? Okay, so that's us. So I'm going to cover earning, I'm going to cover spending and funding, and I'm going to talk about the 3 things that you would look out for in each of these areas. But if I'm too shallow or I'm too deep, you guys tell me, okay, ask questions along the way so I know that I'm not like preaching to the converted, that sort of thing. Okay? So let's talk about earning first. In coming up with a business model, I think you saw the business model canvas earlier, right? Earning is probably the most important one, because if you don't earn money, I think you can survive for a little while. You can even list actually without earning money, but then the problem is what's going to happen is that your investors will one day realize that you're a crappy business and your price is going to go down the drain. Okay? So what we usually do is to design a revenue model right at the point where you're already doing the design, that when you're doing the business model canvas, already have an idea what your revenue model is, but test it. So for example, in our business, it was very new, right? So we didn't really know how to charge the service professional. We know that charging the user through diamond, we cannot. So we tried, when we charge the service professionals, we thought about, okay, how can we do it? So the first one we tried is, you know how Yellow Pages does it? You pay more premium, then what will happen is that you go up a little bit. They're used to classifieds, they're used to premium listings and things like that. But we realized that, how many premium listings can you have? After 20 premium listings, people are like, no difference already. You put me amongst 20 people. So in each category, we couldn't scale beyond 20. And in a technology company, it's necessary for us to scale beyond 20. Otherwise, we won't be able to get the network effect. So then we realized, okay, that's not going to work. And we realized also, to build a very good digital directory like Yelp, it would take us far too much money to grow in order to get revenue, which is not very much. So we decided to pivot away. And we ended up with this model where people pay to be able to quote to a certain job. Okay, so we needed to test that, and believe me, we launched something like the Groupon model where people can buy packages, and people are so fed up with that already, so that didn't quite work. And when we go in, we say, it's a bit like Groupon. They're like, no, I don't want to hear this. So that was testing the market, and it didn't work. Okay? So have an idea of what your revenue model is and test it. Don't test it by asking people, hey, will you pay? They will never, they will always say, yeah, it's a good idea. Then later on, when you ask them to put their money down, they're like, this month not very good. Maybe next month, your GST, economy not good. The end, whatever reason. So always try to test it, and test it in a way that is the cheapest for you. So you don't need to build a whole system or a whole process around testing a model, but do something simple and then just ask them, will you pay $10? Will you pay $20? Will you pay $50? And then see at which point their face change color. If their face change color too early, then you know, it's a bit too hard. Right? So you need to test it. The second thing you do when you have a revenue model or an idea of how things will go you need to project it into the future and try and do 3 years at least. Even if it sounds like nonsense and you're just putting nonsense numbers in, try and do it for 3 years and see whether the numbers actually make sense or not. Right? One of the most valuable feedback I got from an investor, right? Because I did my model, so I used to be a consultant, right? So I did my model and everything, it looked like a nice curve and everything. And then the investor looked at it and said, if you stay with your old company, can you earn more? Then I looked at it and said, actually yes. And she said, what for you're doing this? You're so unambitious. So then I had to change that by 7 times, but that's a very good feedback. If you project it up and using your most optimistic, on your best day, you realize that the numbers are not good, there's something wrong with it already. Or if you project your revenue and later when you project your costs and you realize that, like some businesses, it never meets one of those 2 lines. That means your cost will go up forever and then your revenue is like staying still, then you know you have a problem. Okay? But always adjust it, because what you think will happen in your head, right, is often not what will be reflected in reality. So run, you project it for 3 years, run your business for 2 months and then say, hey, does this numbers seem to make sense? If it doesn't make sense, then you adjust it and you keep doing it again and again. And do it until you get something that makes sense. Okay? And then the third point, that is not just value, but what are the alternatives? So the question is, I will tell them, okay, you can get a 100,000 job. All you need to do is give me 20 ringgit or 10 ringgit. And then your chances are 1 in 5. So you count out, say you take 20 ringgit, you bid 5 times, then you get 100 ringgit, then you get a 100,000 ringgit job. Quite good, right? It's not just that. The truth is that this does bring value to them because the maths make sense. But then they're going to say, hey, but your competitor can give it to me for 5 ringgit. So then that becomes your value benchmark already. You have to be, compared against them. It's not just how much value you bring to people, it's how much the alternatives will also cost them, in a sense. So always be aware of what other people are doing and what other ways they can do to fulfill the same need that you're trying to fulfill for them. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if you have crazy competitors, then, sorry lah. But they exist everywhere. Okay, spending. Okay, spending, the 3 points here as well. Know what drives your spend. In every business, right, there's like 2 or 3 things that will drive the bulk of your spend on. And focus on those things, measure those things, track those things like crazy. Some business like ours, it's marketing. So our marketing, right, can come up to like, I don't know, like a lot. Very different from Yvonne's business where the marketing itself is probably not as high as, I don't know, maybe you can tell later. But for us, marketing is like 70% of our cost because we need to educate the market a lot, right? So we keep an eye on that, and every week I'm saying, how much is our cost of acquisition? How much is it? How much is it? Until all my co-founders who can start already, they said, wow, you're so money-minded, you're really Chinaman. I said, seriously, if that's 70% of your cost, you keep an eye on it, right? And there are things that will never be that much one. You think that a lot, but actually they're not. Things like rental. Rental seems like, wow, like 4,000 as opposed to 3,700, you're trying to kill me. But actually, if you multiply that over the year, you realize that the difference is very little only. So don't pay so much attention to those things, but pay attention to your 3 major, bulk of the cost. For retail, it's different. For retail, your rental is like a huge proportion, right? So it's different for different businesses. And then what you do is you project it in the future. Make sure you know whether or not most of your costs are fixed or variable. Everybody clear on what fixed and variable costs are, right? Fixed costs are basically those things you need to incur anyway. You don't sell anything, also you need to incur. You sell, also you need to incur. Variable costs are those that if you don't sell, you do incur. If you sell, then after that you incur. Which is better, fixed or variable costs? Which one? What's better? Fixed or variable? Variable cost better, is it? Because you're able to kind of control it if you don't spend it.
Well, the metrics are good, then just spend more.
Okay, which one's better, fixed or variable cost? Just now you mentioned somebody was actually running a business. Okay, so for some people running a business, maybe give me an example. Which one is better, fixed or variable cost? Which one do you prefer? Maybe this gentleman over here? Okay, who's running a business? Okay, all those people who raised their hand just now. Come on, someone. Otherwise we'll never get the tea break. which is the next thing. We're really hungry. Fixed is better. Why?
Easy to control, right? Easy to manage and project. Know how much you have.
True. Okay. I think it's a trick question because there's no such thing as better. Actually, another of my bosses once told me, Jesmin, let me tell you something. There is what? He said all fixed costs are variable in the long term. I'm like, wow, what does that mean? but I guess it's true, right? To run a company that's small, you maybe need 5 people. Later on, maybe you need 10 or 15. But it doesn't ramp up as quickly as the variable costs are. So in a sense, for internet businesses, I think the variable cost is a huger portion, like marketing and things like that. But it always differs. Control your fixed costs, but make sure that you control your variable as well. And what is very important called unit economics. I won't cover this because it's a little bit complex, but just make sure that for every additional item you sell, for every additional unit you sell, your variable costs variable costs are always less than your unit margins. In a sense that, like a donut shop, for example, for every donut you're selling, it makes sense for you to sell the next donut. If you find that the next donut you sell, you keep making more and more losses, which means you keep losing more and more money, there's a serious problem with your variable costs, and you should not be selling that donut. So those kind of businesses really can die on. So watch your variable spend and your unit economics. Are we going to have a session covering unit economics at some point?
Yeah, I can invite you again.
Bad way to ask a question. Okay. And then apply a 30% buffer. Because life is such, you have GST, you have inflation, you have all these different things. So whatever you project, add 30% buffer. Okay?
Why 30%?
It's a nice number, Normally it's not good, like Chinese not so nice number. And 20%
38, I make it 38.
Yeah, about that, 20-30%.
Okay.
And for startups especially, you only last as long as your runway. So for example, you have 100,000 that you're going to put in, right? Or somebody's giving you 100,000 to grow your business. Really, your life ends at the end of that 100,000. At the end of 100,000, you can either justify that you can raise your next round, which means you say, okay, give me 100,000, this is what I did, and look, the numbers are amazing. Can you give me some more money? Or can we find somebody to give us some more money? Either that or you resign and retire. So you need to know how long your spend is going to last you. We call it the burn rate. So for example, if you raise $100,000 and you're going to spend $10,000 every month, you're just going to last 10 months, right? And you cannot last beyond that. So we control our burn rate very, very carefully, especially if you're not making as much money as we are spending. If you're making some money, then what you can do is you can net it off and find your net cash flow, and then you can extend your runway a little bit. But make sure you control your burn rate. It's super, super, super important. Funding. This is like my super favorite topic. Okay, money is not just money. Why do I say this? Has anybody raised a round of funding from investors for your businesses? Where are those entrepreneurs just now? They seem to have disappeared. Why do I say funding is not just funding? Because actually, like getting funding, and maybe banks a bit different because banks, they are a little bit further away. But investors are almost like your life partner. Why? Because once they give you money, they're almost invested in your success. So if you are successful, they're also successful. If you fail, they also fail. So what they'll do, right, is they are holding hands along with you in your journey already. So $1 that you're getting from one person is not the same as $1 from another person. So based on our experience, if you not to say experience, but based on our, speaking with people and things, getting money from, say, a corporate investor, very different from getting from a venture capitalist, very different from getting from a bank, very different from getting from your uncle. And there are no pros and cons, but it depends on what kind of businesses you are. So for example, if you're getting from a venture capitalist, you must know, and this tied to the second point, you must know who you're getting to bid with. What does the venture capitalist want? How does he intend to make money? What is he going to measure you with? And how many times is he going to bug you every month to ask for your metrics and things like that? Because these different guys, right, are completely different ones. So your uncle will probably say like, I don't understand any of this spreadsheet you're showing me, I'm just going to give you, okay uncle, okay. And got money to make, right, okay. So that's it already. Venture capitalists will say, can you grow 10 times in the next 6 months? Can or not? And I'm going to measure you. When you say grow 10 times, what do you mean? Is it 10 times more customers, 10 times more requests, 10 times more 10 times more sign up, 10 times more revenue, what is it? And they will track you on. And if like 1 or 2 months you miss, they will come after you. They really will come after you, right? Because venture capitalists work on the basis that they invest in 10, 7 will probably die, like 2 of them will probably like be okay, and then 1 of them will be a superstar. So they always want you to be the superstar, right? So they're always on your back and look for different things. Banks are different, right? Banks, you can service your loan, they will give you a loan, right? They've got nothing on you. Corporates are very different. Corporates, when they invest in you, they always have an ulterior motive. So it's like one of those guys who go after you that they actually want something at the back of their mind. All the time, but they don't tell you. They'll tell you, oh yes, you are extremely strategic. When somebody says the word strategic, right, run a mile. Okay, strategic is a very dangerous word. It sounds very good and it makes you sound very smart. But when people say strategic, it's very dangerous. It means that eventually they want you to be part of their little portfolio. Okay, so that's what strategic really means. So strategic, they always want it for strategic reasons, which means that your business will one day fit into their business and somehow help their business to grow. And what they want is really either to have a foot in a new technology or they want to take bets. So they don't know whether you'll be successful, but if you are successful, they don't want to lose out on it. So they'll acquire you, either they'll help you or they'll kill you in 2 different ways. So corporates are a bit dangerous. So 2 words to stay away, strategic. And when they say there are synergies with their core business, the ones you better run away. You know what synergies mean? Synergies mean they're going to come to you and say, hey Jesmin, you seem to be quite an intelligent person. I got these 8 business units with a lot of problems. Can you come and sit down with all these people and tell them how to improve their business? That is what to them synergies really mean. So strategic synergies, run a mile. Okay? Second point, know who you're getting to bid with. I think I covered that already. You research them, you find out what other businesses do they invest in. And then what you do, right, is you go and talk to all those other people that they've invested in and say, hey, how are that guy? Okay, and then you can get a lot of information from them. Right? Do some due diligence on your investors, very important. And then the third one, when I say read the fine print, it means that you will be given a term sheet, right? And most of us, right, will have no idea what the term sheet says because it's all gibberish, right? They'll use words like the aforementioned, acknowledge, don't know what, and pertinent and pursuant to don't know what. And then you're like, what? I don't get it. Make sure that if you don't understand your term sheet, you get a lawyer to look at your term sheet. The lawyer will charge you an arm and a leg, but it's very, very important because a lot of us startup founders, we've already, we've had a lot of experience with people who work like 3-4 years and then they sell for a huge amount, but what they get back, right, is really a pittance. The reason is because every time you raise, they want certain terms and conditions, then the next round guy you think is going to lose out on more, right? You say, oh, you give him one time liquidation preference, I want 1.5. Then the next guy will want 2. And by the time you finish, right, what was the word? Nothing left for the startup founder, and then you have to go back to your ramen and start again. So be careful with the fine print. Get somebody to read the fine print if you are not legally, savvy in a sense. So I think I've covered these 3 areas. Are there any questions?
When is the in a startup there must be some phases to do some fundraising, right?
Yes.
So what is the reason to do fundraising, or running out of money, or in some commercialized or any status or any KPI to do a
how do you
fundraising?
actually measure what is Series A, Series B, Series C?
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of, okay. I think there are different industries that do different things, but my experience is that there are actually sort of like 2 ways to do it. The bad way to raise funds is when you need funds. No one's going to give you like $1 million or $1 billion up front, or 760 million or something. But they'll give you maybe 300,000 first, so that you can prove something. And then you have some revenue, and then they will give you 3 million. And and then you have something else, and then we'll give you 20 million and 50 million, that kind of thing. So how you actually set that differs by industry, but usually you can ask your investors what is expected at the next round of funding.
But when is the best time to do all the planning?
At the beginning.
At the beginning?
Yes.
Even though you don't have any product yet? I mean, in the beginning, it should be development period.
Yeah, but the thing is that if even the first guy who ever invests in you, the seed investor, they actually want to know what is your exit plan already. So you have to say like, okay, I'm developing something that can potentially be bought by this company, or potentially can IPO in this country, or potentially can sell to this competitor for whatever amount. And the way you design your business actually matters. So for example, if you intend to sell to a competitor in the, not to say competitor, but similar company in the US, what do? You arrange your business model to be as similar to this guy as possible. Because then when he buys you over, he doesn't need to integrate. He already understands the business. He values you more because he understands the business. If you say plan to sell out to a corporate investor, what do? You make yourself, you make sure your governance are tip-top, you make sure that your documentation is like crazy, you make sure that you're maybe even registered in the same place as it is, or you arrange your value proposition such that it complements that kind of business. So the way that you design your business model using the canvas, the business model canvas, will differ depending on your exit strategy. And then you go backwards and see how many rounds of funding do I need to get. It's a bit more than art than science, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned 70% spent on marketing. Actually, where exactly is that spent on? How do you sell, promote the site?
Just for us or for
your
us? The bulk of our spending is always on marketing, and how we reach our customers, who we are reaching, target segment, is actually very busy professionals who want trusted services and they don't have much time. So what do? They go on Google, they go on Facebook, they ask their friends. So when we do marketing, we also say, okay, then the bulk of our spending is in Google, is in Facebook, things like that. For a business like Yhongs, for example, they are probably, that's probably different. I don't know, you can talk about it later. But then, for us, the bulk of our spending is in online marketing. We can also spend in offline marketing, but that means we need to teach those guys to use online systems. So that makes it a little bit more expensive. So until we saturate the online market, there's no reason to go offline. So it always depends on your target segment. Where are they hanging out? How do you reach them at the point of which they want your service?
Do you market more to the service provider or the consumer product?
What do you think?
It's a chicken and egg error.
It is a chicken and egg. But surprisingly, all marketplace, there's one easy side and one hard side.
Yeah.
Which one do you think is easier or harder?
I think your focus will be on the provider first.
Yeah. And then?
Then only the consumer. Oh, that's my guess.
Provider is the consumer.
Consumer.
Right?
I don't know, What do you think, Jessica? We always thought that the difficulty would be to market to a service professional. But then we realized that in Malaysia, there are 80,000 B2C focused SMEs who are already online savvy. Online savvy means they either use WhatsApp, WeChat, or they have some crappy Facebook advertisement, or they get some guy to help them, do Google ads. So actually, that market is very, very big. The demand is already there. We just need to reach them. What is harder is to convince the customer that they can find us this way. Because you don't usually do that, right? You don't go to a system and then you put in what you want and then people come back to you. This is fairly new. So we found that it was hard. It was harder and it is harder and more expensive to get a customer compared to a service professional. And this year GST bad, economy down, dollar is down, ringgit is down. Everybody wants new business. So people will try, people are willing to try as long as you can deliver new business to them. But you have to try it out. But also, right, it's a chicken and egg in a sense that if you don't get customer, that guy is going to be like, hey, waste time, you sign up, no customer also. Then if you get a customer, then you must faster go and get somebody to go and serve him because he'll be like, hey, your empty one, no response one, I'm not going to do it. So it has to grow in tandem. But one side is always easier. Like 11th Street, they grew really, really quickly, right? Who uses 11th Street now? You use 11th Street, right? They only maybe 5-6 months in Malaysia.
They start from April.
They start from April, right?
Yeah,
But
April
why are they so
26.
successful?
Today they have a very big event in Lot 10.
Yes, with
Haha is
the,
coming. Yeah.
with the Korean pop star.
Haha, yeah. The name is Haha. H-A-H-A.
Haha.
Yeah. Very famous guy.
Because they got cell phone and Asiata and also the Korean.
Yes, but you know Cellcom and Axiata invested in a lot of businesses. I don't know who am I representing. But Cellcom and Axiata invested in 3 businesses and none of them were successful. But 11th Street is. Why? Because 11th Street got their vendor side sorted out already. They have these guys in Korea that give them really cheap stuff. And you know the Korean trend is really growing, right?
Yeah.
So they got the supply side straight away sorted and they only need to focus on one side. Whereas the other 3 startups that you can go and check who they are, have to still deal with the problem of the two-sided marketplace. Okay, so I think I better not take up so much time. So this, RecomN. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. You can also email us at hello@RecomN or jesminlaw@recomn.com. If you need anything else, if you know any service professionals who are looking for more businesses, we especially need CCTV and what else? CCTV and good caterers. So yeah, make sure you tell them about us. In Johor and Penang actually. So so let us know, okay, if you like you have anybody who are interested to be with us. Yeah. So thank you.
You should go for Chinese in Penang.
Sorry?
You should go for Chinese version in Penang.
But you speak Hokkien, right?
No, Hokkien, you
How
just
do you
go
mean
for
the
Chinese.
sign in Chinese?
The sign in Chinese.
None of us can read Chinese.
Then you should hire one.
You know where's the problem is?
Yeah.
Because I'm Penang, so I know roughly, because Penang people are more towards Chinese nowadays, and the English educated ones are mostly in KL.
Oh, I see. So there's a language barrier. Okay.
I mean, a lot of people that are going to use the internet one in Penang are mostly those like, I mean, there's how to say, like carpenter and all these things, they are really, like I said, they doesn't know English.
I see.
If you really go for Chinese, you can serve JB as well.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, no, that's a really good tip actually. Gosh, we need to hire more Chinese speakers. Okay, thank you very much for that tip. Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you.